Everybody has a story. We all come from different places, different backgrounds, different events that happened in our lives. And today on this episode, we'd like to share a little bit about our story and some of the synchronicities and the timings that happened to bring us together. And so, welcome back to another episode of
Enthusiastically spiritual.
Hey, Tom, how are you?
Good morning, Teresa.
So, yeah, let's share a little bit about synchronicities. So, for myself, Uh, for most of my life, I don't even know if I knew what synchronicities are, really. All I knew is that things for myself lined up. And looking back, right? Like when I went through things, I didn't quite know what was really happening. But looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, it was like all the breadcrumbs and all the things occurred for this next thing to open up and happen. And that's what happened when Tom and I met in July of 2017.
That's right.
What do you want to say about that, Tom? How about you? Do you believe in synchronicities?
I suppose so.
What is your definition of synchronicities, Tom?
I think when the timing of what I came to do, what from a spiritual perspective, what I came to do. So, what's that all about? What does that really mean? Is it a job? Is it a lifestyle? Is it a learning experience? I suppose when it lines up with what spiritually I came to do, the lessons that I came to master, the areas I came to master or learn or relearn, then doors can open. And there's been times in my life when doors have opened and doors have closed. So, I'm aware of times when there's a wave of energy that I'm riding, and there's times when I've missed the wave or a little late on the wave, and it's a little harder work to move with it or to catch it. What about you?
Yeah, so for myself, like I mentioned a second ago, is I've noticed that things definitely have occurred to get me to the next place. And like you're saying, like, maybe sometimes I might have detoured or I might have like missed the timing a little bit. But in looking back overall, I really, hit the marks, even though I might have had some hiccups or some pitfalls or some roadblock things that maybe made the journey a little more challenging than it could have been.
Hmm.
So, like when we met, right? So before we met in 2017, I was living in Tallahassee, Florida. So I was in the on the East Coast, Southeast, and Tom was in Australia.
Hmm.
And I was really doing my spiritual work, searching. I have been really moving around, like doing shamanic astrology, evolutionary astrology, going to different events all over the world, honestly. Um, oh, this is live recording. And
What does that mean?
I think that means we're actually live. I'm not sure. But anyway, so
Oh,
yeah. So whenever I was exploring all of this, I had no idea where it would actually land me to. But I know that in searching and inside of myself, I knew that I was at an unhappy place in where I was at physically, right? Like the place I was at, the people I was with. And so in understanding that, moving through and exploring all those areas of opening up, I was actually in search of my next my next place to movement, my next person to come, which happened to be Tom.
well, I came.
Yes, he did come in 2017. We met each other at an event. We both came to an event in Iowa. And during this event, it was funny because it was something that I was, we were both guided to come to. He was called, someone that called him in to do teaching. And I was called to go there because it was I was excited about what they were offering, which was a trance healing course. So over my last maybe 10 to 15 years before this, I was very into healing work. I was doing some mediumship, some, trance work,
Mhm.
Reiki. And so hearing the word trance healing just like lit me up. I'm like, oh, I need to be there, even not knowing anything about it. And that's kind of how I've always worked with things. I never really get all the details, but I get enough that I'm like, and I'm moved by my spirit. Like, I just know I need to be there. So in working with that and recognizing that I needed to be there, we both showed up in the right timing.
Hmm.
And once we showed up, we were involved in the class, the trance healing class. Actually, Tom was the teacher of the trance healing class. And during one technique, we were lined up across from each other, person to person. And Tom, ironically enough, spirit led him right across from me. So as we did this technique that we were all working with, which really helped us clear out some of the energy around us, each time we moved from chair to chair, there was a veil unwrapped, like the curtain started opening up slowly and slowly. And then at some point I looked at him and I'm like, holy crap, I know this guy.
Hmm.
And he had the same look towards me, and it really got kind of uncomfortable. But then I just kind of relaxed with it. And I've known him before. So after that event, we went outside. And the first thing I said to him was, hey, it's nice to connect with you again this lifetime. And he said,
Oh, you got that too? Or something like that.
you did. You said, oh, you got that too. And from that moment, it was truly game on, in the sense of there were so many synchronicities. There were so many things that happened that were like, wow, spirit really set up the situation and the energy for us to really, well, reconnect, to really recognize one another again, and then to also move to the next thing of what we were doing. So that's how we met. So anything you want to share about that portion of it, Tom?
Well, it's hard to describe, except when I was at the time, it seemed very magical, you might say. The energy was, the feeling around all those events was very high. And, the word I guess I'd use is, there was a awareness of the mystical, which sounds all woo woo, but I don't mean it that way. It just, um, I wouldn't say it's otherworldly. I would just say it was beyond the normal sense of awareness. That's probably the best way I could describe it. Was beyond my normal sense of awareness. I remember we had this deja vu experience. At least I did. And I had met Teresa in the foyer of a building. She had come from one room and I came to another. And I asked if I could walk her to the accommodation or the dorms that people were staying at. And there was just this, as I said it, there was an echo of, almost an energy echo of saying that, as if I'd said that before in another lifetime. And the familiar feeling. And then I was kind of tuning into how I felt in that lifetime. And I felt like it was a military lifetime. And I was very stiff and, a bit rigid, as you would be back in those days, and formal. I was very formal, and I even used words that naturally came out of me. This wasn't a conscious thing I was trying to do, but I felt smitten with her. That's a word that was probably used more a couple centuries ago. A person's really smitten with somebody. And however, at that time, it wasn't like we thought, oh wow, here's a new romantic partner. We weren't really thinking that. We just knew that we were very attracted and there was so much energy there. And then as the days went on, the energy moved very quickly. It was like we were as if in the time that we were in, it was only so many days, but as if a lot got regrouped quick, as we were moving through it, and the affinity, and everything unfolded. So as if we were just picking up from where we left off. But, I believe that it was important that I was there at that time. I know that I had a lot of backing to be there. And a friend of mine needed me there, and he kept, actually one of the people that, runs the events that we were in. But there was a lot of encouragement to be there, and even some backing to get there. And so, things just really, really fell into place.
Which they do in these times of when these synchronistic moments happen in our lives. And it's funny because as we're talking about this, and I've shared this with other people in the past few years, I've heard this from other people. I mean, obviously we have our own different unique ways that it shows up, but I've heard other people saying, yeah, they've met what we may call a soulmate, a kindred soul, someone that you remember from a past, or just recognizing a soul remembrance. It happens to a lot of people all the time, and why it happens at certain times. I mean, that's obviously your journey to find out why it has or why it hasn't happened. I believe for myself that for what I've come to do this lifetime, I needed to have a partner like Tom who was very connected spiritually, who knew who he was, and was able to really back me as I move into the last 7 years and beyond, because I've got some big work to do here. And so that's my belief of why this happened. And I also believe we set it up too, that we've been, waiting for several lifetimes to come back together. So and to have this experience. What do you feel about that, Tom?
Well, it's a good question. The idea that, you know, synchronicities occur not just with personal relationships, but in all kinds of areas. And, winning a job or winning an opportunity, that's kind of a business term, winning a job, right? But getting a job or finding an opportunity that you really enjoy. And in looking back on a couple of opportunities that I've had to work with various people or organizations, there was a window of time that was going to work for me. And I stepped through the door at that time. And then later on, I've, remarked to myself, gee, I wonder if it would have been that easy, a few years later. And it wouldn't have been. Things would have been different. So I guess the one thing that is important that I just learned to trust my guidance that, these things will unfold over time. And where I'd like to get to is that we, we had this amazing experience when we came together, and it wasn't something we were consciously planning. That was the other thing. But there was, in regrouping it, we were looking for something different, better, more in line, with what we felt we came to do, and be with somebody that was more supportive of that, line of work. Doing this sort of spiritual work for us is like we're in it because we love it. We love to share and we love to be involved with the energy of the higher spirit, really. So it's all about being of service, and then we get a lot out of it. We're growing, we grow a lot. We have new awarenesses, and it's a lot of fun. So certainly in the last several years, there's been wonderful experiences. But uh, what I kind of want to talk about is, and we can talk about some other ones that have occurred, but if anyone can think of a time, anyone out there, when things just seem to really fall into place for you, and the doors opened, we all have those opportunities. Things were good, and it just was. It wasn't so hard in a way, but there's times in between those big, events where these doors open, where you were kind of experiencing everyday life. And I think the one thing that I've been regrouping a lot is that to be patient in those in between times.
That's
Be
really good.
patient in those in between times, because not every day is a big like oh wow, kind of a thing. So what do you think about that?
Yeah. It's funny because I think about that and go, yeah, and what if it was? Holy crap. Like, how would we'd be like, oh, every day is like, no, it can't be. And I like what you mentioned about the synchronicities of, of things lining up for really not only relationships in, a personal, but like you said, business and other events that happen. Cause I've had that through my whole life. In looking back, there's been some really key events that have opened up, like when I went to the military, when I was 17. And that was definitely a divinely created situation, because it started the ball rolling for all kinds of things that happened later in life. And then eventually meeting Tom. So we may have met up if I didn't go in the military, but I'm just saying for myself and looking back at these moments that are just really key for myself, there's been so many of them. But again, I do agree too, but there's been a lot of living life and being human and just having the normal, whatever the normal is for you guys out there, experiences. And so it's not all, like Tom's saying, it's not all, lightning bolts and fireworks all the time, but these moments do show up, and to really embrace them when they do, even if, because honestly, when it showed up for me, at that time, I mean, I was just moving through the energy, right? I wasn't like, oh my God, I can't believe I met a soulmate. No, I wasn't like that at all. It was just like, just moving through what we were experiencing. And then later looking back and going, holy crap, that was major league amazing. Do you feel that way too, Tom?
Yeah, it wasn't like I have deja vu experiences of that to that degree all the time, but that's one. I've had some, but that was one where I really went, whoa, that. And how do you describe that? It's like, or how do I prove that? I can't really. It's like proving I had a dream. But if there's people out there that have had those similar experiences, and maybe being covered with chills, when your guidance comes close to reinforce, yes, what you just thought was true. That's you're on the mark. You're in the flow of the river. You're in the flow of what you came to do. I feel like my, I was a special agent in the FBI, back in the 1980s, and I got in as a young man, and I had some experience, but being an electrical engineer, there was a science program you can get in under, and a lot of people, I got to my new agent class. It only took me like 6 months to get into the FBI. And when I was at my new agent class, there were people that were like, there was a guy like 35 years old. He'd been waiting like 10 years and to get in the FBI. He'd worked as a clerk. And, those, my fellow former agents will, relate to that. There's all sorts of people that, really, waited a long time. That was something that they stuck with. Whereas for me, it just, the doors opened, the thing fell into place. I thoroughly enjoyed the opportunity while I had it. And, but then I felt it was time to move on to other things. So there was an example where, I think the synchronicity of what I needed to learn and what I had to develop within myself, which probably had a lot to do with confidence and getting a more realistic view of the world and, that kind of thing. There were, there's probably a number of things, working with the facts, and that, and understanding, not putting anyone else on a pedestal, that all those sorts of things. And, folks in law enforcement are just people too. And we're all just most of us are just trying to do the best we can to be of service and that sort of thing. But then I got into business. And then there was a time when I had been doing some spiritual work. I'd been on tour and I was working with one of the founders of, or the major founder of the Inner Peace Movement and the Way Showers College. But I decided to go back to Chicago and work for my father. And I really didn't know if there was a job there for me or not. I was just heading, back to Chicago from Washington, D.C., and to catch up with family. And it just had turned out that one of the fellows that had worked for my dad had just left. And this was Easter, it was around Easter time. And he had just left after many years of working for my father. So there was all of a sudden that weekend, there was an opening, to go work in my father's small firm as manufacturers representatives. And that was a great experience. So I did that for a few years, and I really got to got to know him better and see what he was like in business. And, it's experience that I cherish. I'm really glad I had that opportunity. So, in fact, it was great. So there's a few right there where doors just seem to open at the right time. And I guess, the big challenge is worrying in between.
Right. What's going to happen
Yeah.
next?
Yeah. Am I going to find my soulmate, or am I going to find that life partner that, I'm one that believes we have thousands of soulmates, but am I going to find a life partner that really reinforces what I need to be doing and what I came to do. And from that spiritual perspective,
Yeah, or even a job or, a situation. Because even like right now where I'm at, I know there's some new things gonna be opening for me, but I have no idea or clue yet as to what exactly it's gonna look like, and so there's no sense of worrying. I mean, for myself, all I'm doing is just, doing the day to day, what I need to do, and showing up in the ways I need to show up, because then in that action, which ironically enough, we're in action energy today taping this, spirit backs that. And so and things will line up perfectly in the right timing for the next thing to open or the next relationship to come or whatever it looks like for you out there. So I think this is a good place to kind of close this sharing, in the sense that, so we really just wanted to share a little bit about our backstory, and also just giving you some insights to look into how synchronicities and how things have lined up in your life and been backed by spirit that maybe you didn't think about too much. And we don't think about it all the time, but in sharing and looking at the life journey that we all have and the stories we have, it's really great to look back once in a while and go, wow, look at what we came through and look at what happened and look where I'm at now. What do you think about that, Tom?
Well, I think it's true. As we were, sharing, Teresa loves to talk about when we first got together.
I do. It was
And,
magical.
and being a male and a man, it's of, it was wonderful. It was amazing. We personally have shared a lot about it as to with each other, like the synchronicities and the way things fell into place. And sometimes, when I'm in the midst of those experiences, I do, a little doubt can come up. But in hindsight, boy, it was so perfect. I guess what really, hits me is as we were sharing, that I've often thought that, like, the timing of me getting into the FBI when I did, so I could have that experience, or the timing of uh, my opportunity to work with my dad, so I could have that experience there, and grow from those experiences. When I'm kind of aware of the lessons that I put together, or how I felt and how I changed inside in my inner. It's not so much about the outer as for me is remember that what we're going to take with us is the inner part.
Right.
The outer trappings of your opportunity or not, you can't take that with you. It's so as you listen to this, you may have a few, and there's probably others for me, but you may have a few ideas that come to mind as to when things fell into place. And on the other hand, you may be aware of times when you tried to force things and the timing wasn't there. But I always love to say, the universe is a benevolent place. We have, a purpose. We have a lot of spiritual backing for what we came to do. And if you're not feeling like you've got a lot of backing, it might be you're just not in the right place at the right time. Your angels are not, your spiritual helpers are not really able to help you as much as they could if you were more move a little here or a little over there. What do you think about all that?
Yeah, I think that sounds great. Getting that backing support definitely as you move through your journey is important. And I do believe that we always have that backing, but there can be, like Tom is saying, like there might be a placement of, if I'm over here versus over there, they might be able to go, okay, Teresa, now we're going to shoot you off this way, versus if I'm in this lane and maybe it's not quite where I need, be at energetically, I can shift a little. So I think that's yeah, is that what you're trying to say, Tom?
Yeah. And you know what, the other one that comes to mind more recently is aligning with some fellow musicians here in our area, and how I met someone, that a good singer, Jesse and the Medicine Men, and I met Jesse at the right time, and Teresa said something to him, and all of a sudden I
did.
got opportunity, and now I play in 3 different bands, and with a group of folks, fellow musicians that are around our area, Des Moines area, and having a blast. And so there's another
Absolutely.
example in the last few years where doors just seemed to open, and it was the right timing.
Yeah. So again, in your life, listener, is, just recognizing when these things have happened for you also, and just giving great thanks for the journey you've been on, and where you're at now. So
Yeah.
with that, we just want to say thanks for listening in to another episode of Enthusiastically Spiritual. If you like this episode, please feel free to share it with others. Also, we would, if you're on Apple, we'd love comments, or on YouTube, just let us know how you really enjoyed this episode, because we loved bringing it.
Yeah. And as you unfold your relationship with your guidance and your inner gifts, you can become more aware of when these synchronicities are occurring, and have less doubt and move through them, more efficiently and more smoothly
I
to
love
enjoy
it.
life more and
Sounds great, Tony.
feel more fulfilled.
And so with that, we'll say that life is
Too
too
short.
short to not be enthusiastic about
your
unique journey. To keep the enthusiasm going, please like, subscribe, or comment below. We would love to hear from you.